How's it, everybody? Welcome to Knock Off Rugby, and the Springboks in Australia result is in, and it is not the result that the Springbok fans would like. It is certainly not what we predicted. It's not what I predicted. I got that one horribly wrong, and my humble apologies to my Australian friends down under. But let's be honest, no one really saw this coming. I did agree with a few of the pundits that said that we might be undercooked, and I thought we might start slowly, but that first 20 minutes really put that to bed. I don't think anyone in the world saw the next 60 minutes. 38 unanswered points, final score being 38-22 to the Wallabies. That is some game that the Australians pulled out. Look, I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of opinions on the game plan, on our general game plan, to be honest. This is not really the first time this has happened this year. Certainly to this extent, yes. But it did happen in Italy 1. We sort of let them back in the game and in ways that we shouldn't have. So yeah, let's get into it. 38-22 the result. First 20 minutes, I think up to 17 minutes, the Boks were 22-0 up. Playing some of the best rugby I think I've ever seen the Boks play, to be honest, in terms of prettiness and just being the dynamic style that we used, and the edges that we used, and the ball and the passing. It was all accurate, and it was all unstoppable almost. I think Joe Schmidt actually said in the post conference what he saw where he was standing was just wave after wave after wave, and it was pretty difficult for him to contain. So yes, it is. Wow, I don't have much words, or I don't know how to actually put it into context about how the Australians came back. After that, just before halftime, they managed to get a try in, and I think that gave them a bit of confidence. I think they took that as a win. I think the last quarter of the first half was 5-0 to the Australians. So, that gives the team a lot of confidence going into the half. It's something to talk about. It's something to grab on. I'm sure that team talk was very much tactical. Maybe they thought that the Boks were going to bring something else. Maybe a bit more of an aerial battle. Okay, well, there was an aerial battle and we did win that, but perhaps more of a kicking game. I think even more than what happened, especially because we were dominating the air so much. I'm very surprised that the Springboks went away from that quite early. I know that there was some HIAs and things that could have, disturbed the back row, at least. Not the back three, the back row, because I thought when Kwagga came on, even the first time, I thought the breakdown got messy. We gave away a lot of penalties at the breakdown, and on attack and defense, and I'm not sure that our back row did much of a job there. I thought Pietsch did well in terms of what I think they're telling him to do. They're telling him to be on the edge. They're telling him to get those wider channels, and I'm not sure if that perhaps leaves a hole in the middle for us in terms of brunt, in terms of that clean-out capacity. I know there's obviously different jobs for different players, and certain players have probably got more of the ruck handling job, and maybe Peter's out on the edges he'll be the ones trying to secure rucks, but I felt that he almost took up space. Why are we passing to Pieter-Steph du Toit on the edge when Kurtley Arendse or Van der Merwe is on the edge? Surely these guys have more pace. There were often times where Pieter-Steph du Toit got the ball. Okay, he made meters. I'm not saying that he didn't. But there were often times he got the ball and he couldn't pass because there was no more space. Give it to the winger. The winger's probably got more probability of putting a step in, or maybe even getting some speed around the guys. There were often cover tackles coming onto Pieter-Steph du Toit that he just didn't have the speed to get around. So I'm not sure in that. I think that's a very big problem. And like I said, I think when Kwagga came on, I thought our ruck potential was just not good. And in fact, when Eskom came back on from the HIA, I thought he had a really good first 20. But let's be honest, guys, most of my review on the Springboks here is going to be after the first 20, because that first 20, I think the whole team had a good game. So it's very difficult to review that. But we lost in the end, so it's the defining moments, which was the second 60. Yes, so Peter Siakalisi, I thought, had a good game as well, but and even Etzebeth was massive. I thought those two really showed that they are still Springbok greats. Like I said, Peter Steff also, but I think he's in the wrong. I just think he's in the wrong place. I'm going to go on a bit about Tony Ball. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not going to work. I'm not going to sit here and say too many. I'm not going to be too critical on what Rassie and them are trying to do. What I'm going to talk about is past and what happened today, and I think that's very important. And I also, perhaps before I get into that, I just want to say that the Australians, they hung in there and they played like champions tonight. I was super impressed. There's a few guys in their squad that I didn't even think would make an international side on the circuit at the moment in terms of Tier 1 nations. However, there's a few of them that just proved me wrong. So, and they didn't need Will Skelton tonight. Will Skelton was almost a non-factor. Suaalii, almost a non-factor as well. And these are two of their biggest players. Okay, he got the intercept try and he had a few touches here and there, but I thought the Springboks controlled him quite well. But in terms of the Springboks, it was actually aptly put after the game by Skoltberger. The Boks got outboxed. Guys, go back to the World Cup. Go back to our rush defense, counter-attack ability. What's happened now is I think we have got such an emphasis on wave after wave of attack that our defense can never scramble anymore. What I mean by this is we played all the rugby. I'm looking at the stats as this morning, and we played all the rugby. Okay, they got the same running meters. We've got more line breaks. We've got more carries. Our turnovers lost was insanity. We just ran ourselves off our feet. This is Ellis Park. This is supposed to be our spiritual home. We should know how to play the conditions. And yes, I know they've been doing fitness and they've been there for 3 weeks and they've been just going with intensity and playing against each other. Like they like to say, they play against the two best teams in the world play each other in practice. That's all well and good, but they got it wrong. They absolutely got it wrong. They ran themselves off their feet, and Australia just had easy pickings. And I think, like I said about that try just before the end of half time, Australia all of a sudden thought to themselves, you know what, these guys are going to get tired. And this margin that we are behind is not so big, actually. We beat France in the World Cup the way that Australia beat us now. And I know it wasn't by 20 points, it was only by 1 point, but it was the same concept. They played all the rugby. They made all the mistakes, and we scored off turnover ball. Because that's what the rush defense, the proper rush defense strategy is. You play territory, kick it, let them play all the rugby, make sure you shut everything down. And because your rush is so good and is so accurate, they're going to make mistakes and you're going to benefit on them. Play the contestables in the air, which we did for the first 20 minutes. And even then, I don't think we did it enough, but we did that and it worked. And we owned the air. And then all of a sudden in the second half, we decided, no, we don't need to do this anymore. We're just going to run side to side and see if we can find a hole. And we made line breaks. But lapses of concentration, errors of the breakdown. I'm ranting a little bit, but it's frustrating. I've been voicing these concerns, perhaps not on YouTube enough, but between my own rugby fraternity and yes, everyone's very excited about the way we're playing now. But I feel like the All Blacks are just smiling, and France are just smiling because they don't actually do this running side to side game. The All Blacks are trying to up tempo. Now, there's a very different thing. I'll talk about the New Zealand-Argentina game later, but there's a very different thing to up-tempo rugby and side-to-side ball and playtime rugby. And I think we've lost that balance. We need to regain our balance in the game. We have to play territory. We have to play contestables. We are machines in the air. Going away from this, I'm not sure. Marnie Lebok, I really like him, and he was great in the first 20, but when we go backwards, he's the wrong flav to have. Everyone wants to... It seems like we're discarding Pollard a little bit. I know everyone says, we've got 3 10s, it doesn't matter which one plays. We've discarded Pollard a little bit. He's got the least game time out of the 3 flavs, and he's probably the least suited to the style of play that we importing here. And I'm not a fan of that. I still think he's our premier flav, and I still think... I'm not even going to say if we went to the World Cup tomorrow that we'd use him. I think if we went to the World Cup in 2027, Andre Pollard's our flav. I think Sasha is the next incumbent. Yes, Marnie's only ever performed against lesser opponents in the Bok jersey, and last night was supposed to be one of those opponents, and it just got out of control. That pass, they had no right to be passing those long, fleeting passes that are just easy to read. And someone like Suaalii with that height and that athleticism that he has to just pluck it out the air, it wasn't great. So yes, I know I'm ranting a bit, but it's disappointing, and I'm sure everyone listening here that South African supporters are just as frustrated and disappointed. I will say though that I'm expecting a backlash. I'm expecting Rassie. I mean, we can say what we want as podcasters and rugby analysts, but Rassie and them have done this. They've done their homework. They've won 2 World Cups. They've won a British and Irish Lions series. They've won the championship. They were undefeated on the Northern Tour last year. So all of that can't just be broken. The world is going to there's going to be flack here for the Boks, and they just have to take it. Unfortunately, our coach, one of the best ever, is also pretty outspoken, and he's pretty public. So once you put yourself out there, as we are as well, you've got to take what comes. And I think that's probably what they're going to be expecting soon. In terms of Australia, well done, guys. Well done. That's a huge... This whole year has been a huge momentum shift in Australian rugby, and I'm happy about that. It was a bit of a worry when the championship was only ever going to have 2 contenders. And look, they're far away from being contenders still, I think. They still have to take a game at home against the All Blacks. They can't lose against Argentina at home. The Bledisloe is a big thing for them, I think. Look, they've won for the first time in 62 years, I think, at Ellis Park. But I think the Bledisloe it's probably less years they've had the Bledisloe, but I think in terms of significance, I think that's the one that they really need to step up for. As I said, I thought Suaalii had a decent game, but he wasn't the game changer. I thought Skelton, everyone was talking about Skelton, and Tupou. Their scrums were still going backwards. There just wasn't enough for the Springboks, to be honest, especially on the own ball. But yeah, it was a frustrating game from a Springbok perspective, but an amazing game from an Australian perspective. And well done, Wallabies. I think the whole of South Africa needs to take this humbly on the chin, and we all love supporting a winning team, and the South Africans love to be lauded when it goes well. But now I think we all just need to put our pride in our pocket and as the Springboks do, and just say well done. We were outplayed in every facet. I think we had the wrong game plan, and I think we were actually our own worst enemy on the field against a team like Australia that's on the up, that's got confidence, that's looking to regain the respect of the world. I think it was the wrong thing to do. I think we needed to go tight. I think we needed to batter them, which we were. But we needed to use that more. Use the weapon. Forget this, I want to be pretty now. The whole world's not going to be worrying about the game we played if we lose. Nobody at the World Cup, if we lose in a semi, if we lose 50-48, the Springboks played running rugby. They're not going to remember that. They're going to remember we lost. They're going to remember that we have not won a third World Cup in a row. So yes, guys, if you like the comments and like what you hear, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. I'll try and get back to every comment that's written. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.